Hello, everyone. This is Illy. I wanted to come on here and talk a little bit about, just make a short video on my experience with being in God's presence and seeing His will be made. So, along my journey, I gave up homosexuality. I gave it to the Lord for healing. Um, and I gave my life to Christ. So, part of giving your life to Christ is you deny yourself, pick up the cross, and follow Him. And I was thinking back on, how I got to Tennessee and how through a sequence of events, I ended up here and then becoming a Christian. And so I was thinking about that today. And then I'm also reading a book by A.W. Tozer called The Fire of God's Presence. Um, and he was talking about how Moses and the burning bush, how he puts himself in Moses' shoes, like what was it like to be in the presence of the Lord, to see a burning bush and just be so, you know, just overcome by the Lord's presence. And so I was thinking about that in my own life. And one of the things that Tozer says is that, he goes through the story of Moses. Moses was, part of this Egyptian prince's family for 40 years. And then because of some events, he ran away from Egypt. And then he spends the next 40 years getting prepped for what the Lord has for him. And so thinking about that story reminded me of how I got here on my journey. That, you get to a certain point where you don't exactly want to do what the Lord is leading you to do. You're not exactly comfortable sometimes when it comes to being led. And for me, it was a couple of events that happened that led me here. And by the way, I'm 44. So that kind of got me thinking about my first 40, and how I got to become a Christian again. And I say again because when I was really little, I really did love the Lord. And I loved Jesus Christ. And I loved everything that had to do with that. And I wanted to learn more. And I would go to churches with my friends. And I still didn't understand, but I still had this hunger and desire up until like 12 or 13 years old. So anyway, my first 40 years have been shaped a certain way to get me to this place. And so the thing with what Tozer says about Moses is that Moses, the Lord took Moses through this journey for 40 years to get him to where he would serve God's will. But he wouldn't have been able to if he was still in Egypt. And so, anyway, to make a long story short, what I got out of that was how in my life the Lord pushed me out of my comfort zone of being in Texas for 35 years. 35 years. He literally kicked me out step by step in 2021 to come here to kind of suffer this loneliness and this change that, I didn't anticipate. I didn't anticipate that I would become a Christian when I came to Tennessee. I came as a whim and as a sign. I kept seeing signs that I needed to move out of Texas. I didn't know why. I didn't know. All I knew was that I needed to, and that was just the way it's going to be. I didn't know it was going to be a spiritual journey. I just thought it was, okay, my time's up here. I want to try something new. And when I got here, it was like so many things I suffered, not so many things, but I suffered a little bit. You know, I was lonely. I felt betrayed. I felt rejected. Um, and I was literally alone. And so, but but now look at me. You know, look at where I am now. I'm in a place where now I can really be in the presence of God without any distractions and really learn about him. Another thing that I wanted to mention quickly is that, you know, when you give up your homosexuality, when you give up your identity as a homosexual, it takes time to get used to that. And one of the things that was a bit of a suffering was, well, then who am I if I'm not a homosexual? And that's when I knew that that's the whole point of faith, is to stay in your discomfort and trust in the Lord. He puts you in a position and to where you start calibrating to him and to the way he thinks. That's what they talk about when they talk about being a new creation. I knew that I was becoming a new creation when I gave myself to Christ, and that I really didn't have to worry about how I wasn't going to be a homosexual anymore. I just had to put my ultimate trust and faith in Jesus Christ. And like I said, it takes a while to really understand what that means. And there's so many questions that I still want answers to, and the Lord provides all the time. He's always answering my prayers. And so, just to wrap this up, you know, this week has been, the theme I feel has been gratitude, and why it's important to have gratitude. Because when you are grateful and you prevent yourself and you stop yourself from complaining, and you actually are in the moment and you start recognizing what you're grateful for, that's where God is. Then you start seeing how God is affecting your life. Then you start seeing how he is blessing you with every little detail. And to the point where you become so grateful that you realize how much he has really done. You know, there was this part in the movie Jesus Revolution that was really interesting. The main character's wife, Chuck Smith's wife, says, "Lies are loud, and truth is quiet." And when you're grateful and you thank God for any little thing and everything, that's the truth right there. It doesn't have to boast. It doesn't have to be like outlandish or sensational. It is just calm and quiet. And those are the moments when you really, I believe, can feel the presence of God.